today's video, I want to show you what a Jackery Explorer 1000 with a SolarSaga 200 panel can actually do during a full day outage using real numbers from my backyard here in the Central Coast of California. This video isn't lab accurate or scientific, it's just a slightly nerdy analysis of what I can expect from my setup, how much energy I can get in a day, and what devices I can run realistically. Basically, I'm doing this for my peace of mind. Your results may vary because your stuff's going to be different. All right, first, I need to figure out how much power I actually have to work with. The Jackery Explorer 1000 battery by itself is rated at 1070 watt hours, but real world usable energy is closer to about 900 watt hours. Some of that power disappears into inverter losses, battery management limits, and some other stuff. Since the screen just shows you a percentage number, I'll use 100% as the baseline, and when I talk about capacity, I will stay with battery percentage. Now my end game here is to develop a simple strategy for me and my family to follow during an outage. So I have a designated place that I put the Jackery to go to when the time comes. So next I need a clean way to run the solar cable to the inside. Fortunately, my house already had a small hole in the exterior wall from an old satellite dish. I don't use it anymore, but it turned out to be perfect, except the cable didn't fit, so I had to make the hole just a little bit bigger. Once that was sorted out, I mounted the panel on my pergola at about 45 degrees facing south. I know there's an aiming gauge on the panel, but let's be honest. In a real outage, the panel goes up and stays put. And this isn't a permanent install. I'll plug the hole, put everything away, and only break this out when the power goes out. Before I could start generating solar, I need to drain the Jackery to about, I think 10% is probably good. So I'd have plenty of room to measure how much energy the panel could add in one full day. And honestly, this gave me an excuse to do some fun testing. I started with my morning coffee, which cost me about 5%. Then I boiled a pot of water in a kettle for my wife's tea. This one hit a little bit harder at about 18%. I made some toast for breakfast, not too bad, it cost me 3%. And then I cooked up some rice in the rice cooker, which used a whopping 21%. After breakfast, I headed in to my internet closet to see what my modem and router would draw. This part was interesting because after connecting the Jackery to my UPS battery, there was a flashing building wiring fault warning. My best guess is that the UPS is sensitive to grounding and neutral bonding. It probably didn't like how the Jackery outputs power. So I disconnected the UPS entirely and plugged my network equipment straight into the Jackery. To my surprise, the draw was so low that it didn't even move the gauge. I did some research and it looks like the modem and router together should use only about 1.5% of the battery per hour in theory. So after a little fine tuning with the kettle to shave off the last few percent, I finally reached my target starting point of 10%. So I learned a few things yesterday when I did some testing. First, extension cables, especially the 50-foot one I bought from Amazon, will absolutely suck the life out of your power generation. I was losing up to 30 watts, which is roughly 25% of what the SolarSaga 200 can produce in good sun. That was enough to convince me to ditch the long cable entirely. Shorter extension cables probably would be better, and if you get it from Jackery, it may be a little bit better quality. Second, where you put the panel matters more than I expected. My first placement was on concrete patio. It actually started out okay in the morning at around 120 watts, but once the concrete heated up in the middle of the day, the input dropped to below 110 watts. So that's another 10 to 15% loss. Basically the panel telling me it was overheated and not happy. To fix all this, I mounted the panel up on my pergola and used the original cable. That spot gets better airflow in the bottom, It's less heat, less shade, and suddenly everything started working the way it should. Some other possible solutions would be to place the panel on grass or dirt where it doesn't radiate the heat on the back of the panel. So this exercise proved very useful in coming up with a strategy. My panels were generating up to 183 watts at their peak, which is way better than what I thought I was going to get. For 6 straight hours, I gained an average of 13% battery per hour. But this high output creates a different problem that I didn't think about before: lost solar potential. Let me explain. If you start in the morning with a 100% full battery and your usage is really low, let's say you don't make your coffee and you don't connect your fridge, you're just trying to conserve, your solar panels can actually outproduce what you're consuming. Because once the Jackery hits 100%, it simply stops accepting power. And from that point on, every watt the panel is generating is wasted. It's solar energy that could have gone into the battery but didn't. So I need to use it or lose it. If you want to capture as much solar as possible throughout the day, the battery actually needs room to store it. But there's good news. The Jackery has a battery saving mode that caps charging automatically at 85% when you select it. It helps extend the long-term life of the battery. And during an outage, that 85% cap gives you a built-in 15% buffer, and you don't lose out on solar during peak sun hours. So the results of my solar test turned out way better than I expected. I added 92% back to my battery on the sunny day with my setup. If you are paying attention, you might be saying, but Aaron, you started with 10%. You can't have 102%. You're right. I generated so much more than I thought. I had to actually disconnect the panel and discharge the battery another 10% and then reconnect it. So how does this help me with a strategy? Well, I made a spreadsheet about it. You want to see it? Here it is. Now, consider this. You think you want to be conservative. So here is an early morning outage, my conservative version. On the left, you'll see the time. This is assuming a 0500 or a 5 o'clock in the morning outage. Now you'll see the generator power on the left there. And then you see the internet, fridge, my small refrigerator, a fan, and some other single-use items at the top. Just underneath those, you'll see their usage, either single use or their usage per hour. Now, if I put a 1 in the block there, that means I've used it during that hour. So you'll see the internet. I wake up in the morning, I realize that there's an outage, and about 7 o'clock, I plug my internet back in. Now let's say that I'm a little bit scared and I move all my essentials into my small fridge. And well, some of my stuff is just gonna have to get warm. So I'm being conservative, right? If I start with an 85% battery and you look on the right side, you'll see that the battery peaks at 100% right around 12 o'clock. And then I lose 10% that doesn't go in the battery, then another 9.22% that doesn't go in the battery, and then another 7.22% that doesn't go in the battery. I am wasting solar power. Let's look at my optimized version. You'll see that I actually turn on my fridge. I plug my fridge into the battery right away. My big fridge. I use it during the hours that I'm generating the most solar. And you'll see, and I actually have my coffee. We actually have 2 cups of coffee. And I make my toast. So I'm using the battery, and that leaves more space. So as I'm generating battery, and you see on the right side, I never hit 100. I am optimizing my battery capacity as well as my sun generation. What about a Friday evening 5 p.m. outage? Nightmare, right? Well, In this case, yep, I don't have any sun. I'm not gonna have any sun until about 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning. So I could still run my large fridge for a while. And then as we triage and eat our dinner, we can then move whatever we haven't eaten over to the Bouge RV, fridge. We can shut off the internet because we don't need it after we're going to bed. Charge lanterns, MacBook, iPhones, and then it'll slowly discharge the battery overnight. But in the morning, as long as there's sun, I can regenerate all that power back. So what did I accomplish? Well, I've got the peace of mind now to know that I don't have to shut everything off. So this chart and this testing has allowed me to understand how much power I can generate and how much power I use in my normal appliances. Or if I look at the forecast in the morning and I see that there's going to be sun, I've got the SolarSaga 200. And it can give me almost my entire Jackery battery back. 92%, that's not too bad. For me, this project was a key to help me and my family live a peaceful life in the event of an outage. Hopefully it helped you a little bit too. But I'll see you next time. Bye.